So really interesting stats, and I'm reading them just objectively. I'm just reading them for what they are, statistics. And we can interpret them, but what is your opinion on why there is that tiering system in terms of home ownership, and what will be a subsequent wealth gap, a racial wealth gap, because home ownership is a key component of wealth. I'm going to say that over and over again. So besides personally investing in property in the UK housing market, doing a bunch of projects like BRRRs, serviced accommodation soon, and regular buy-to-lets, I'm really interested in the general stats and figures of home ownership in the UK, specifically by community and race, and what contributes to the racial wealth gap in the UK. Because we know, and this holds across most countries on the planet, that property is one of the main sources of wealth for human beings on the planet, property and land ownership. So when you're talking about wealth differences between classes, between communities, between races, and wealth gaps, a big component of that is property. And when I look at the home ownership stats in the UK, one of the big questions that comes out of that is, why don't Black and Asian, with the exception of Indians, and we'll see why Indians aren't included in that in a sec, why don't Black and Asians own more houses in the UK? And how does this link into the UK racial wealth gap? So you know I always like to come with receipts, with facts and figures. Here are the most recent home ownership stats in the UK by race and ethnicity. And immediately, when it talks about the main facts and figures, we can see that 63% of households in England own their homes during the period this data was taken, which is impressive. 68% of white British households own their own homes, compared with 74% of Indian households. Households in the Black, African and Arab ethnic groups are the lowest rates of home ownership, and in every region of the UK except the North East, white British households were more likely to be homeowners than all ethnic minorities combined. Wow. So let's look at the numbers in more detail. And this breaks down basically in table form what we just saw. So all is everybody, all races, all ethnicities in the UK. The average rate across the whole of the UK is 63%. But when we look at the detail behind that, let's first look at the Asian community. So from Bangladeshi down to Asian other. Within the Asian community, Indians have the highest rate of home ownership. In fact, they have the highest rate of home ownership in the whole of the UK across all ethnicities. Then the next highest is Pakistani at 58%, Bangladesh and Chinese 45-46, and then Asian other at 39%. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be any type of expert on the Asian community, but obviously there are cultural differences, ideological differences, social economic differences across all cultures within the Asian community and across all cultures and ethnicities across the UK. You tell me, if you are watching this video and you're Asian, or you have close links to the Asian community, are there differences in terms of the desire to be homeowners within those different communities? The reason why I ask is, if you take England, for example, versus Germany, right? In Germany, there is a culture of renting. It's not like in the UK. Our culture is geared towards home ownership, and that really came in with the Thatcherite government decades ago, and it's stayed ever since. So there's this big desire, it's a goal in the UK, and America's another example, to own your own home. Go across the continent to another European, mainly white country, in Germany, not so fussed about owning homes. They're more geared towards renting. Okay, so let me know in the comments how that, or if that concept even exists within the Asian community. Now, going down further, within the Black community, Black Caribbean 40%, so these numbers are low. Black other 37%, Black African 20%, and we saw earlier on that Black African is the lowest rate of home ownership in the UK. I'll come back to mixed at the end. Within the white community, 68% white British are homeowners. White Irish, 56%. White other, I'm assuming that if you're white and non-British, so Australian, American, German, wherever in the world you might be from. But collectively, you can see that the white community have the highest rate of home ownership in the UK, as we saw from the summary at the beginning. But the Arab community of 17% and any other at 29%. So actually, I stand corrected. The Arab and any other, those two communities have the lowest rate of home ownership. So in summary, in terms of home ownership in the UK, on average, Top is the white community at 62%. Second is the South Asian community at 59%. Third is the East Asian community at 45%. Fourth, Black community at 32%, white other at 30%, and then last is the Arab community at 17%. So really interesting stats, and I'm reading them just objectively. I'm just reading them for what they are, statistics. And we can interpret them, but what is your opinion on why there is that tiering system in terms of home ownership, and what will be a subsequent wealth gap, a racial wealth gap, because home ownership is a key component of wealth. I'm going to say that over and over again. Tell me your opinion on the differences in home ownership across the races in the UK. So I looked into income because at the end of the day, you need income to be able to afford a property in the UK, to buy it and benefit from equity and the rise in value and the wealth. So could income be a key or a explanation for why there is this difference in home ownership in the UK across races? So let's look at how income varies between races in the UK. And of course, income is a key component of the racial wealth gap in the UK as well. So the summary here, main facts and figures, it says 79% of Bangladeshi households are in the two lowest income quintiles. So that's the bottom 40%. Over half of the households in the Pakistani, Asian other, Black other, and other ethnic groups were in the two lowest income quintiles, the bottom 40%. Almost half of Chinese households were in the highest income quintiles, the top 40%, the highest percentage of all ethnic groups. Now that's really interesting because we saw that the Chinese community, when it comes to home ownership, are pretty low, 45% to be exact, which is some way below the UK average. Yet they are some of the highest earning ethnic minorities in the UK. So is it that? And it comes back to my question. Culturally, do certain ethnic groups put their money into other things besides housing? Do they not prioritize home ownership? Are, the Chinese community putting more of their money into, say, starting businesses or saving and doing other stuff with it? I don't know. Tell me in the comment section below. And lastly, 10% of Pakistani households were in the two highest income quintiles, the top 40%. So this is a chart representing what we just read. This is the bottom 40%. This chart is about the bottom 40%. So in the Asian community, 58% are in the bottom 40%. In the Black community, 59%. In the white community, 38%. And then other. I don't know who others are. A mystery group of people. But then broken down. So you've got a high number of Bangladeshi community in the bottom 40%. Low number of Chinese and Indian. High number of Pakistani, 75%. Then Asian other. In the Black community, doesn't separate it by Caribbean and African. That's odd. It did when it came to home ownership. And then in the white community, white British, again, low number in the bottom 40%. White other, low number in the bottom 40%, and other. So let's look at the highest 40% of earners in the UK. So Asian 28%, Black 23%, so fairly close. And then 42% of white people are in the highest 40% of earners in the UK. So a clear difference between the ethnicities when it comes to income. And let's tie this back to home ownership. So we saw that the white community have the highest rate on average of home ownership in the UK. And we see here that the white community are up there with Chinese and Indian with the highest proportion of their community up in the highest earners in the UK. We know that South Asian and the East Asian community have the second and third highest rates of home ownership in the UK. And predictably, when it comes to ethnic minorities, they are the first and second. They're the top two income earners in the UK when it comes to the proportion of their community that are in the top 40%. The Black community are third from bottom because you've got the Bangladeshi and Pakistani community below them. But interestingly, the Pakistani community are up there. They're close to the average rate of home ownership in the UK. 58% of people from their community own a home. And the Bangladeshi community, 46% of their community own their homes. The average across the Black community, Black African, Black Caribbean, and Black other, is 32%. So they're actually below the Pakistani and Bangladeshi communities when it comes to home ownership. But when we look at income, a high proportion of the black community earn more than the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community. So that's interesting, right? So lower income across the Bangladeshi and Pakistani community, but higher rates of home ownership. Again, explain that. Let me know, because I'm not an expert when it comes to these communities and these ethnic communities. But is there something culturally about the way those two communities work when it comes to buying homes? Do you pool your money together as a family or as a community and do joint, property purchases, as opposed to like one person, one man, one woman, or a man and a woman, a couple buying a house? Do you do it as a community? I'll be really interested to know, so let me know in the comment section below. But guys, I'm going to end it there. I just really wanted to explore the data out there and really just look into how home ownership differs across ethnic communities in the UK, how that feeds into wealth inequality and racial wealth gaps in the UK, and really ultimately to emphasize the importance of owning property, because we know it's a key component of wealth when it comes to individuals in the UK and across the globe. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd be grateful for your comments. Thanks for supporting and watching and subscribing. Share this video with others that you think might find it useful, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. This year I'm making a video every month to answer any questions that you have for me. So whether you want to know whether you should invest in a limited company or in your own name, whether you should buy a flat or a house, what is the best way to get started in property, or who my barber is, just let me know. You can ask me in the comment section below, on Instagram, on TikTok, and I'll make a video dedicated to your questions. Like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.